science fiction is using language of the future to talk about the present. And that's what we see happening in apocalyptic literature as well. Welcome back to another episode of The Word Made Fresh, the weekly show where we look at upcoming texts being preached at Riverside. It's usually the narrative lectionary, but this week we're going off book a little bit, and we get you ready for what's happening this Sunday if you're joining us at Riverside, or some ideas you can borrow in your own context if you're a preacher, Bible study leader, or just a Bible geek. It's all good. Now, this week it's just me, hanging out, you and me, the whole time. Well, kind of, wait for it. Reverend Thorne is traveling a bit today. This week, our guest preacher is traveling as well, so we just couldn't line up schedules. So, hi, we're just going to hang out and talk about the Bible. But I'm going to bring in some videos, so you'll get a glimpse at Sunday's preacher. Now, this week we have a guest preacher. We have Dr. Yii-Jan Lin from Yale Divinity School. Professor Lin specializes in immigration, textual criticism, the revelation of John, race, and gender. And she has a new book that is out, Immigration and Apocalypse. It is a great read. We should all make sure we have a copy. There'll be copies available at Riverside's bookstore, or you can buy them wherever you get books. And I'm so excited to get to hear from her this Sunday at Riverside. I think you will be too. Now, let's look at the text, then we'll talk about a few more things with Dr. Lin and Sunday. So we are in Revelation. Don't worry, it's all good. We're at the very end, the final chapter, almost. End of 21, there's 22 chapters. So let me read a bit of what we're going to be looking at on Sunday. This is verses 22 to 27. I saw no temple in the city, for its temple is the Lord God, the Almighty, and the Lamb. And the city has no need of sun or moon to shine on it, for the glory of God is its light, and its lamp is the Lamb. The nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it. Its gates will never be shut by day, and there will be no night there. People will bring into it the glory and honor of the nations. But nothing unclean will enter it, nor anyone who practices abomination or falsehood, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. So much in this. Dr. Lin is going to really take us to church on Sunday with this, I know, but just a few things to just orient ourselves with. Revelation is apocalyptic literature. That's a genre of literature that was well known in its time, and now we just think of it as, things to inspire, whatnot, fiction like Left Behind, which is very much fiction. But apocalyptic literature, I like to think of it as science fiction in our world today, because science fiction is using language of the future to talk about the present. And that's what we see happening in apocalyptic literature as well. They're using language of the future to talk about the present, their current context and reality. And in this one, the picture that's painted is this city where the gates are never shut. That's a sense of everyone is safe there. And people bring the glory of the nations into it. That means it is this incredibly diverse, all the goodness from all of us are brought together. There's a lot of things you can just take away from that already. Cities and their safety. Which cities right now do certain individuals feel the need to impose safety measures when maybe they were just safe enough as is, and we didn't need to escalate tensions? And what does it mean to welcome and embrace the glory of the nations rather than disappear and deport that diversity? Oh, I'm sure Dr. Lin's going to get in on some of this. So I'm just thinking already in those directions. And I know that it's going to be a really, really, really rich Sunday. Now, this is kind of a dipping our toe into Revelation as we start the summer. Later in the summer, we're going to have like a full-fledged week to week series through the book of Revelation. So buckle up for that. But this kind of lets us peek at the ending before we kind of work through the whole revelation of John. Also worth pointing out, it's Revelation singular, the book of Revelation, not revelations, not plural, not more than one. It's one revelation. And it's called the revelation of John, but it probably wasn't actually John the disciple. Just like John the disciple didn't write the book of John. Okay, that's like, go to your seminary professor and then you'll get that whirlwind of a headache sorted out. Or just hang out with us more often and we'll keep talking about this stuff too. Okay, so Revelation, there's a lot going on here. It's a book that many of us are scared of because we think it's like end times. But I think we need to recognize it roots itself in a particular context. It's using the language of the future to talk about the present. And I think that's where we can still learn from it today. We're not trying to find it's the end of the world theology or when is Jesus coming back theology. It's how do we see this apocalypse happening now? How do we see these upendings of the world in the world we're living in? How do we find God continuing to show up and come again and again and again in the midst of all the chaos and calamity around us? That was the context then, a little bit of chaos and calamity, and that trend doesn't seem to be going away. So there's a lot we can learn from the book of Revelation, a lot we can learn from this particular passage, and on Sunday we will do exactly that. Now I want to show you a clip of Dr. Lin from a podcast, Data Over Dogma. Great podcast, definitely recommend subscribing. Dan McClellan and is the primary host of the show. Great theologian, has a book that came out. This isn't about Dan, this is his podcast, but he talked with Dr. Lin. So let's listen in a bit and get to know Dr. Lin. Here we go.
The premise of the book is really that America, since its discovery by Europeans and its settling by colonists, has been conceptualized as a type of paradise utopia, and borrowing from Revelation, the New Jerusalem. And part of that story I find in the soil of New Haven itself, of this kind of apocalyptic thinking of the land that is now the United States. So if there was this legend that the New Haven Green, which is the center of town, and you can find city greens all up and down New England, but the New Haven Green is unusually large. The green is so big, it is said, because supposedly John Davenport, who is one of the co-founders of New Haven, wanted to create a place where 144,000, that's in Revelation, the chosen, could gather or be buried, depending on who you ask. So it was this kind of apocalyptic urban planning, as I like to call it, where he wanted the green to be that big in order to fit all those bodies on there. I've not been able to find any historical evidence for that, but it's very understandable because the city itself is modeled on the measurements of the temple from Ezekiel. It's a 9-square grid. So it's very much this gridded, I think first of its kind in the U.S., plan for a city. And it surrounds the center of town in which there is a house of worship, right? So it's very much like the Israelite encampment or the Ezekiel temple, and the understanding of 12 outward facing sides and then the center of worship in the middle. And so there's this sense of apocalyptic structure, even in the literal structure of the city.
And you have an exhortation toward the end of the book about decoupling Revelation from our self-understanding as a nation, from the foundation of our identity. Can you talk a little bit about what brings you to this exhortation at the end of the book?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back again to this understanding of election or chosenness, there is definitely that intertwined with American exceptionalism, which is inextricable, I think, from an American Christian identity and thinking of the nation as God's chosen in a particular way, whether as a shining city on the hill or, which is hopefully, a righteous aspiration, as versus America first, which is still America-centric, America-focused. We are the chosen, right? So, and there's also, of course, that sense in Revelation of the chosen are within this city, right? And everybody else is struck down or kept out. They cannot come in. And even beyond immigration, of thinking about the way that America feels, or the way this administration feels, and historically through the centuries, that it is empowered in a particular exceptional way. And it is the focal point, it's the end point, all of these things. And just thinking how that destructive that kind of thinking can be. And we're seeing that play out, I think, today, in which, everything needs to revolve around this nation. We are able to keep out whoever we want because we are, America first, et cetera. And so I'm thinking that kind of self-identification with chosenness, with the New Jerusalem, needs to be that surety, right? That certainty that we are on God's path, we are on this side. It causes massive violence and causes devastating exclusion and also violation of others in the end. And that's kind of where I see that call to decouple from that.
All right, so that is a sample of what you are in for this Sunday at Riverside. Dr. Lin will be with us. And there are two ways that Dr. Lin will be with us on Sunday. First, she'll be preaching. So she's going to really go right into Revelation, this text. She's going to bring that. It's going to be great. And typically when we have guest preachers, we do a sermon talk back after the worship service, but that's not happening this Sunday. We have a church meeting happening in the afternoon, so Riverside members, get yourself to that. But we do want to have space to talk with Dr. Lin about this text, her work, all of this. So we're having kind of like we're going to flip it and do kind of a sermon pre-talk. So Dr. Lin is going to be joining us in our open Bible study at 9:30 a.m. and that will be a hybrid class. So she'll be in the room, but we'll have a Zoom set up, so it'll be the best we can make it possible. So whether you're in the room or on Zoom, we will get to talk with Dr. Lin about this text, her book, her work, and what we can be looking for in the sermon that is to follow. So there you go. A few things to kind of keep on your radar. Read Revelation, this particular one, Revelation 21. Give it a read, see what you think. Keep that lens of this is not some scary Left Behind novel, but this is language of the future, giving a commentary on the present. And that's a good framework that I would invite you to hold as you read this passage and the whole book of Revelation, and recognize that apocalyptic literature is a genre of literature that we don't really have today. Not really. That's a whole other conversation. So do that, read Revelation, and then we're going to do the thing. So leave a comment and say, glory of the nations. That can be the secret. Glory of the nations. Put that into the chat because it's from the text. And that'll be kind of the code that you read it, or at least that you watched this far in the video. And then join us on Sunday if you can, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time for Bible study on Zoom or in the room. And then we'll be in worship with Dr. Lin preaching and have a good old time. We'll have a mini virtual coffee hour on Sunday for those of us online, so we'll get to at least check in and say, whoa, my mind was blown, kind of a moment. And then we got a church meeting. So that's this Sunday. That's this passage. That's this preacher. Looking forward to having you with us on Sunday. Next week, don't worry, you won't just get a monologue episode again. We have another guest preacher, Reverend Paula Stone Williams, and we're going to be recording a conversation, so you get that good one. And then there's one more episode in the season. Did you know that The Word Made Fresh is a seasonal show? We kind of pause for the summer, gives a break as people are traveling and guest preachers are on the lineup, and it just makes you want the show more. You know, absence makes the heart grow. Yeah, you know the deal. Okay, so only a few more of these videos for the season, and they're going to be good. I promise. I'll make them extra good. Okay, see you next time.